Hello.
Ahoy, maybe.
Wow, people are still walking in, but hello, welcome. We love having the Sea of Thieves team here at EGX. Yeah, I know, it's been a while. And so much so that we have a Sea of Thieves t-shirt. Have you seen the fancy Sea of Thieves t-shirt over the merch? We've got influencers here this year. I think some of them might be in the room. You can go and meet them later. We even have a pirate party later on. We are all going all in on Sea of Thieves this year. But of course, best of all, we have the game developers with us. So please give warm hello to Christina McGrath, Head of Community. Woo. Woo. Executive producer Joe Neat, and the man himself, the creative director, Mike Chapman.
Thank you, Chris.
That's good. I like that. How are you? I've missed you.
Missed you.
We have missed you.
Yeah. So
it's been too long.
Last time I spoke to you, Seasons hadn't happened yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been that long.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. So I was going to ask about. So I'm going to start asking about that. It's a bit old, but how has that gone? What have you learned? What surprised you?
Oh, yeah. I'll
go straight
into that. I think the reason behind Seasons, and I think it was true back then, it's still true today, is having a delivery method for new experiences, new rewards, new things to strive for, new features, new experiences in the Sea of Thieves world. And our players, our wonderful players, getting into the excitement of what is coming next. So every 3 months, there being this predictable release of new experiences in Sea of Thieves. And I think we've done lots of different things in the seasons, from the New World region with the Sunken Kingdom to a Disney collaboration, A Pirate's Life, captaincy most recently, things that enrich the sandbox like fireworks. I think looking at seasons that feel more cohesive in terms of the theme. So they move the Sea of Thieves world forward in a more meaningful way, in a way that's understandable to our players. I think that's probably our biggest learning from season so far. So I'm kind of getting straight into Sea of Thieves already. But as we look to the future of Sea of Thieves, we definitely want to use seasons to expand the core experience of Sea of Thieves, not just add content that enriches the sandbox. Straight in.
Yeah. Well, there's of course, Pirate's Life started there, but there's been so much story added to the game now, with adventures, mysteries.
Yeah.
What's been the reception? Because when I spoke to you when the game launched, you're like, we're not going to add story. Story's not a thing. It's all about players creating their own stories.
It is.
And it still is, I know. But has the reception to the story's been very strong? Is it now more driving your thinking behind what you're putting into the game, what you're doing with the game?
That is a great question. It relates to what I just said about season. So the truth is, we want both. On the surface, this is still a game about tools, not rules, having all your goofy pirate adventures in this wonderful, fantastical world. That is still the game at its heart. And if you choose, as a player, as a fan of the game, to not engage with that story, it's absolutely fine. That story is there to expand the boundary of our world building, to make it easier to role play, to be immersed in the world. So I think with the type of game that Sea of Thieves has become, in terms of how rich it is, I think we see it as an important part of just allowing people into that world. And there's so many different styles of play in Sea of Thieves now, from to draw a harsh line, the PvE style of play, PvP between players, and that kind of narrative thread that's running through all of it. We want to serve all of that. And that was a big part of the strategy to complement seasons, which was to have seasons being that 3 monthly release of new content, but also monthly there's the episodic rollout of the narrative. And it's not about doing story at the expense of core mechanics. We want to do both, which is why there's a separate team building the adventures to the team that are enriching the sandbox and the core experience. And it's not either or, it's both.
Joe, is it true that the team now is bigger than the team was?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And obviously there's a lot of people at Rare working on it, but we also have a number of co-dev partners that we work with, that we keep growing, and we keep kind of building new relationships, because I think we have so many ideas, right, and so many things that we want to do with Sea of Thieves, right, and so yeah, like Mike says, it's not an or, we just want it to be an and, like for everything that we do, right? So Adventures is an and on top of everything that we bring in as part of Seasons with the new mechanics. So yeah, and we've got just so many more plans. We've got like a team working on custom servers in the background in terms of kind of opening up more kind of capability for people to control and have their own experiences there. Like there's a bunch of different things that we have kind of planned in the background, but yeah, like, and yeah, it's just more, basically. We just want to keep doing more things, basically. Spend more money, basically. Add more to the budget. Yeah, it's great.
But I was just going to say, actually, just hearing you talk there, I think one of the things that feels like a real luxury and a privilege is everybody knows what Sea of Thieves is now. So even when we're talking to players, there's players that really love the experience and understand what it represents. But that applies to the outsourced partners that we work with. When we're working with new development partners and we want to make them feel part of the team, like 99.9% of the time, they're already super fans of the game and they understand the tone of the world, they understand the core gameplay mechanics of what makes Sea of Thieves special and that social magic. So that is, like, you can't understate what a privilege that is to have that meeting of minds with people immediately, and that allows us, to Joe's point, the team's never been bigger, we've never spent more money on the development of Sea of Thieves. It allows us to be even more ambitious with a future for Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. It's really interesting as well, actually. Like when we go and meet with new co-dev partners, like potential partners, obviously you go through the process of meeting them and understanding like about their studio, about their team, about their culture. And one of the biggest things that we've learned as part of that process is that kind of cultural and creative alignment around Sea of Thieves, right? Like, you know, part of your vetting of a developer is obviously like what are their capabilities, you know, what different disciplines do they have as a team, but actually, like the biggest thing for us is, do they understand Sea of Thieves? Is there going to be that gelling between us from a kind of creative and game perspective? And if that isn't there, then it just doesn't work, right? And we've learned that kind of over time, right? Yeah. So it's a really important part of it, which I think going into that, you know, years ago when we first started doing co-development, like I don't think that was as much in our head, and it's something we've really learned over time, that's so important. Like, and like you said, like everyone can just play it and understand it, but you really get that first meeting almost is just like, it's the most important thing. It's like, do they get the game? Do they talk about it in the right way? You know?
Yeah. And that's as true of our culture at Rare as it is for those development partners. I think we're big believers that the creative culture is the most important thing, because people can learn skills, people can learn how to use a set of tools, but someone who's got the same passions and ambitions, that's really what we need. And I won't name names, but to build on what Joe was saying there, one of their development partners, one of the first meetings we ever had with them, they shared a video where they'd all dressed as pirates. Yeah. And they were using that to I guess, show what a fun team they were and how much Sea of Thieves meant to them. And I think that, more than their, you know, credentials, is what stood out to us the most. So it's great. We're in a great place.
It's not just, you're not just in investing, and obviously the investment you're making is in making the game bigger and better and more, adding more and more and more. But also you've been doing a lot of cool stuff with the fans, although some of the fans are just doing it for you, right? The Sea of Thieves Fest, I think you went down to it. How was that?
Incredible, huh? Like, honestly, it blew our minds, right? Like, there was a lot of people here that we recognised that were there.
They are here.
And the organisers are here as well. Like honestly, once again, as we always do, but let's give a round of applause to the organisers of Sea of Thieves Fest, please, because honestly, it was a work of art. It was amazing. Like I think you've said, right? The best kind of convention. No offense to EGX, Chris, but the best convention that we've been to, like in terms of just organisation, in terms of inclusivity, in terms of just atmosphere. It was amazing, right?
It was. I mean, I had several negative tests before I attended, but I'd actually had COVID the week before.
Oh, no.
So I was kind of getting my energy back from that, and that. I wasn't sure whether I was going to go that day. I didn't know what to expect, truthfully, but it absolutely blew me away.
Oh,
and
wow.
Joe's absolutely right. It is, and I include E3s and announcing Sea of Thieves in this. That was the best show event we've ever been to, because it came from the heart, and it was real players, and it was run by the community sharing their love for something that we'd had a part in, which is like, it's mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. So yeah, incredible job by everyone involved.
Yeah, and when we came back to the studio, right, like we were just sharing it with everybody, right? Like we sent a mail around with a bunch of photos just to try and share that love, right? Like.
Yeah, and I think we've been really surprised with not even surprised, but just really heartwarmed by how people respond and love our game and how it brings people together. There's a culture about Sea of Thieves in our community that is unlike no other game. I'm obviously going to say that, completely biased, but it's overwhelming. And actually, when you work at the studio, you really feel that love and like pressure to some extent to continue delivering the goods, but only in a good way, right?
Yeah, no, totally.
That's what you put on the poster for next year. Better than E3, Mike Chapman. That's the quote. That's
on the website. Yeah.
But it's not that you've been doing community days as well. Has that started this year? How's that been going? What's worked? What's entertained you through that?
Yeah, I can talk about that because that is to some extent like
your brainchild,
baby,
come on.
My baby. Obviously, with adventures and seasons, we've been adding so much amazing content to the game and actually looking about the story internally. And Community Day really was born about how do we look out, how do we celebrate our players, how do we bring them in? Like we do our multiplayer events like Golden Glory, but they're great. How do we build a culture about that? And where we landed was Community Day, where we actually, I think we're probably, I'm gonna just, without any fact checking whatsoever, say we're probably the only developer to do this, but put stuff like our in-game rewards into the hands of our players. So they went really well. We've had a few technical hitches, but the last one that happened last weekend went just super, super well. One of the most popular days for Sea of Thieves this calendar year. And not only do we see loads of players come in and get loads of free ancient coins, as we handed out during the event last time, but really the culture about it is amazing. Like, the best thing for me, I don't know about you guys, but looking at the hashtag and seeing like pictures of crews, cosplays. I think I've seen Belle here today. Is there Belle on the third? Right, there we go. Lots of things. But the fact that we're able to kind of curate that and put all the goodness into one space and then also offer lots of in-game goodies, it's gone really well. So hopefully, with the permission of these two fine gentlemen, we'll be able to continue doing some more exciting stuff. And because it's only a day, we get to really experiment with stuff as well. That's the exciting bit.
Yeah, and honestly, like, you know, like Christina says with permission, but she doesn't really seek permission. She kind of just like says, I'm going to be doing this. But honestly, like I remember when you first proposed it, right? Like I remember you kind of calling me up and taking me through it and going like, I want to do this community day and this is why, these are the reasons. And then each time the fact that you're pushing and trying and experimenting, because going into a day where we're going to like dial up the ancient coins, right? Like, and basically just give away money, is an interesting thing, because it's like making sure we get it right and that we set the right settings and we're kind of confident going in, but also knowing that there's some risk there that like, because I think we saw like some people getting like 20 odd like ancient skellies in the day or something, like I saw tweets like that. But I love that we can try that and we can experiment and we can do things that it's about celebrating the game and it's about giving back to the community and like kudos to you, Christina, and to your team. No, like you know, take credit. It's awesome.
I think just on what Mike was saying. Oh, that's very kind. Thanks. Look, what Mike was saying earlier about culture, we have the space for me to have an idea, which is an amazing thing about Sea of Thieves in the studio in general. If someone has an idea, people listen. They go, all right, what is it? Go on then. Because we've been running this game for so long now, we have a little bit of, all right, we'll take a chance. And so I'm really appreciative that every time I say, I've got this really interesting idea, that a bunch of experts who will be like, that's a good creative idea, but I'm going to make sure you don't break anything, is really, really helpful. Like it's a team effort across, player insights, across our kind of live service team, across our engineers and services to go deliver an event like this. And I'm just really grateful to have the space to be able to explore that. Yeah.
Well, your community, and I am part of that, are creative, crazy, funny groups of people from what I've experienced. I think somebody was giving out bananas somewhere out there. I'm hoping they're fine. Are there any particular moments, memories, things that's happened recently that your community's done that's...
So for me, like one of the most recent things is CNN, like the kind of YouTube channel. So, as in C, S-E-A.
Yeah, I got it.
As opposed to just the American news channel. I really like it. No, but the creativity that they have of going around and interviewing people and kind of commentating and just the humour, and the tone, it's just absolutely all we ever imagined for Sea of Thieves, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
it's spot on.
like kind of similar to Loot and Lore back in the day. I don't know if anyone remembers Loot and Lore, but like the kind of person going around doing a quiz show and things. Like, that was always the dream with us. We're going to give people tools, we're going to give them a world, and they're going to go and just create stories and create memories, and it's kind of up to the player's imagination what they can do. And so the most recent thing for me, CNN, I just love it. I love watching it. The humour's brilliant. Like real characters in our community, and I love when people kind of, the stories you get of people meeting them and then being part of that, and like how special that feels for them, right? That they get to meet that crew out on the seas. I love that. So.
It's so hard to pick one. I mean, I love the ancient university stuff. They're kind of little university in-game, and there's a Golden Sands as well, the Golden Sands blog, which really curate a lot of the lore content and make it accessible to a broad Sea of Thieves audience. That stuff is incredible. But like above all of that, I think the bits that really stick with me are you occasionally get these incredible heartfelt messages from members of the community in terms of what Sea of Thieves means to them, and it's typically just someone filming themselves just saying exactly what the game has meant to them and how it's changed their life. I know Lazy Buzzard has done that a few times, and it cuts to the core of the team. It makes it so real. By the way, Chris, you are asking very nice questions of us, and what I don't want to make it seem like is like we're having this ultimate victory lap of how wonderful we are. Because I think one thing that I'd really want to call out as well is the trust that members of the community place in us. Because as a team, and our fans are the judge of this, we're trying to be ambitious, and we don't always get it right. There's issues that we introduce with captaincy that we're desperately trying to fix. Some of the adventure stuff doesn't always go smoothly. We've learned a lot from the mystery. So I think we look at it and go, we don't want to play it safe. We want to keep trying new things. But I think the trust that the community places in us to eventually get that stuff right is what means the most to us. So I don't want to make it seem like everything's so wonderful. Like we do a lot of stuff we're really proud of, but we can't do it without the constant faith and trust from our community. So that obviously thanks to everyone here, and thanks to everyone that plays and supports the game.
Don't worry, the tough questions are coming. It's the,
Whoops.
Well, okay, I am going to ask though about some specific stuff. The captaincy update.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that. I like the personalization that you get to do in the game a little bit now. Has it been popular? Are you looking to go further?
Great question. So I've said it many times. I think I said it on the podcast. So I've said it somewhere. I've forgotten now. But captaincy is one of those updates that we've always wanted to do. As long-term players of Sea of Thieves will know, it's always been part of the pirate fantasy that we've wanted to bring to Sea of Thieves. So I think getting captaincy out there is such a cathartic release for all of us. I think it's something we always wanted to do. And the team that worked on captaincy, Amy, the producer, is here somewhere. I can't see her, but she's here somewhere. And some of the team that worked on captaincy are here. Ryan Hall and Dom, they're here. So look out for them after the panel. But that team worked so hard and really believed in what captaincy represents. And we deliberately wanted to add the milestone system that gets people to care about the things that we're now able to track. And there was a lot of community sentiment there around respecting things that people have done in the past, and that's something that we do want to go back to. But in terms of captaincy as a foundation, which is how we see it, captaincy speaks to the social belonging and the sense of persistence that we wanted people to have around their ships. And now that we've landed that concept, we want to use that to reach even further. So in the future of Sea of Thieves, you'll definitely see us expand the notion of the alignments that you can have on that captain ship and how you can share that captainship with others. So there's definitely some things planned for next year that really expand on captaincy in a big way. But even in the near term, we'll be adding 2 new alignments, 2 new play styles that relate to the Season 8 feature set that's coming soon.
which I know we've got some insiders here as well. You're not allowed to talk about it, but it's like that's going to be an incredible update. Like season 8, and it's bringing some stuff in that I think a lot of our players really want, and we're very, very excited about that one coming later this year. But we can't talk about what's in it, sadly. But
I'm gonna ask again about it in a bit. I'll ask this one. There's this. I think there's always this constant to and fro, I guess, even from the beginning, where there's people that want the fighting, the battling, the combat, and then there's those that want the experience. It's always in the beginning. I remember it was all like, we'll tweak it this way, or no, we're able to tweak it a bit this way to make sure you have that sort of unpredictability of encounters and what you might expect. You spent a lot of time on that in the beginning. I remember. Do you think you've got that level right now? Or was it always still a constant tweaking and turning and?
I'll let other people give their perspective rather than me talking through the whole thing, but I think it's always evolving. I think as the game has grown and the community has grown and the different types of players that have been poured into that sandbox, that dynamic is always changing. And you're right in terms of that balance changes when we add a new update. Obviously Emissaries was a big change to the sandbox. Now ships relate to each other. There's examples, the Shrouded Deep, the Hungering Deep, in terms of how we bring players together and how that changes the feel of the sandbox for our players. As we look to the future, especially with, as you mentioned, our focus on narrative with the adventures alongside the seasons, we do want to use the seasons to give players new functionality that allows them to carve their way through that sandbox and all the different play styles. So giving players more control of the experience they get. And I think insiders, Joe will mention, insiders will know what we mean when we talk about Season 8. But there's things planned for next year in terms of you being able to have the experience that you want in that sandbox, not at the expense of the magic of Sea of Thieves, which is always that idea of that shared world adventure game where it's a mix of all those different player types. So we're trying to balance this very tricky thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting though, because that question, if you were to ask everybody here that question, I think you'd get a slightly different answer from everyone, because everybody has their own approach to how they play Sea of Thieves, what they want to do, what mood they're in, what style of play that they want, right? And it's the magic of Sea of Thieves, is that shared world and of those encounters with others and the magic stories that you have, but it also can be on the flip side, that can sometimes lead to negative stories, negative experiences, right? And it's trying to kind of strike that balance is always kind of an ongoing kind of challenge, an ongoing thing that we're always considering, we're always listening to feedback. But it's it is, for some people that's the best part of Sea of Thieves, and for some it's not, right? It's those encounters with others, and it's a real challenge. And obviously you see it, I guess, from the community side, right?
We see it a lot, and I think it's really interesting when you talk about the magic of Sea of Thieves is seeing a ship on the horizon and not knowing if they're friend or foe. That is the spark, the emergent, what's going to happen next moment that I go back to the game for again and again and again on top of everything else. But I think that's also within reason. If you engage in naval combat, I know we've spoken on the podcast about how ways we kind of level the playing field to some extent if someone's getting spawn camped or things like that. So we're always refining and looking, and also really listening to our community's experiences and understanding how we can tweak that, evolve that to make that feel more comfortable, make it fairer, but yet not take away that kind of magic of the encounter.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So jumping back a little bit to talking about the co-development strategy that we have and spinning up new teams, we've been spinning up a new team for a while now, actually, around some of those hot topics, right? Around stuff like spawn camping and things like that. So things that are really kind of critical to the experience that, not a new feature per se, but actually about really refining and really trying to make improvements to areas that are kind of real pain points.
Game health.
Yeah, game health, right? That's what we call it, right? The game health kind of team. So again, spinning up an individual team on top of the new features, the new things we're doing, solely targeted at that, so we can really make kind of progress moving through those things. Because whenever you hit your hot topic, if we go and resolve the spawn camping issue, then straight away whatever's next will kind of move to the top of the list. There's always going to be things to do. So having a team dedicated to that is always going to be working through whatever the kind of hottest topics in the community are, is that's a real focus for us.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about what's coming next, whether it's the story or the mechanic stuff that you teased?
Did I tease?
No.
Maybe I should tease now. What I will say is, going back to the idea of And it's a reason for why game health is so important. It's a reason for why we're always in that space of the delicate balance between the mystery of other players in the world and the chance that it could be conflict and cooperation, but also the game is rich enough now that you want to have your experience on demand. So if you think about the absolute crude way to kind of split it is kind of what you'd consider to be the PvE side of the game. That's served through the adventures, the world events, all of the quest types, all of that emergent gameplay, and then there's the PvP side of the game. What I will say is deliberately Season 8 focuses on the PvP side of the game. So it's been an area of the game that, like, honestly, we've been careful around in terms of incentivizing it, because it is all in that delicate balance of the fact that it plays out in the shared world and all of that mystery of seeing a ship on the horizon. But giving players PvP on demand, really building on that creative idea of the emissary system, building on that, but giving it to people when they want it. So, but doing it in an immersive way that suits adventure. So,
and I reckon it's got the best rewards that I reckon we've had, like, in game in terms of for engaging with this new stuff, and something from Insiders actually, some of the best environmental work as part of this. Like that kind of comes in that we've ever done, right? Like in terms of some of the stuff that, you know, there's some new locations as part of this, right? Like, we just keep spoiling stuff. It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
Something we're so proud of. I said this to the team last week. Like Andrew Fringe, James Crosby, Hannah Smith, who've worked on these new environments for Season 8, went to review the latest with them, and you know, it's always like a kid in a candy store when you go up there, or a kid in a sweet shop. I don't know why I'm pretending to be American. Spending time with them and seeing the latest work, it really felt like you could see that journey of the last 5 years of building the new environments, building the Devil's Roar, building the Sunken Kingdom, building a pirate's life and all those wonderful new locations. You can see all of that experience in these new environments for Season 8, and I think it's some of the best environment work we've ever done, alongside some of the best rewards we've ever done, and hopefully scratching an itch for a big part of our player base.
Yeah, and it's really funny actually. So we had Phil Spencer visiting the studio like maybe a month ago now, like during like one of the many heat waves of the summer. But so we were doing a tour and we were actually showing him a bunch of the work in progress stuff, and we like it was just ahead of him doing kind of an all hands like with the studio, so kind of a talk like this to the whole studio, and there was a real strict schedule for that, so it had to start at this specific point. And Harriet, who's our chief of staff, was really kind of rigid with the schedule, really making sure that it was all running to time. And there was about 5 minutes before that it was supposed to start, we were just going and looking at this Season 8 kind of environment work, and so Mike started showing it, and we had the environment team kind of showing off this amazing work. And Harriet, who is like a big Sea of Thieves player as well, she just completely forgot what her job was, basically, which was to keep it on track, because she was just so enamored with this whole thing that I eventually had to like stop everything and go, Harriet, you know, we're supposed to be the new hands right now, and she was just like, oh god, sorry, I just got like totally kind of like entranced with this. But like that for me is just the perfect kind of example, the perfect story of just how amazing the kind of work that the team is doing on this, because like you say, it's a team that is at the top of its game, right? In terms of what they're doing, the experience that they've learned from working on Sea of Thieves. But I just loved it, honestly. She was just like lost. You could kind of see like the stars in her eyes, like watching this incredible work that the team's been doing.
Yeah. I'm going to ask one more question, but because we have so many, I don't want to monopolise your time, and we have so many great fans here. I think there might be a microphone appearing soon.
Yes.
It's already there, is it?
Yeah, just hidden away.
So if you want to ask a question, form a queue, and in just a moment, and we'll get to some fan questions. But I guess what I want to ask is, how far ahead are you planning now with Sea of Thieves? You still need to be super flexible and sort of can't plan that far ahead, or are you looking at years and roadmaps?
We plan. I think I said a year and a half recently, and that's roughly right in terms of both from a story perspective, but also from a content perspective. And that doesn't mean that things won't move around if we earmark teams for different features. But honestly, we feel like we have to do that, really. in terms of we want to take the community feedback, and that does steer the train on the tracks a little bit. But I think where we are now, coming up to our 5th anniversary and beyond, feels like Sea of Thieves is established as an ongoing, evolving experience. We've got a wonderful, to your point, creative fan base who, want the game to grow in different ways. And I think the responsibility is on us to not lose that spark, to not lose that magic, to keep pushing and take all the learnings and keep evolving ourselves, keep the culture in the studio evolving to make Sea of Thieves the game it could still be. And I think that's what we're always playing for. And to me, I'm going to say this, and I'm sure you believe this, Sea of Thieves deserves to, well, hopefully live forever. Sea of Thieves deserves to go on and on and on. And that's what we want to do by never resting on our laurels and keep striving for more. So, yeah, about a year and a half in terms of the narrative, and probably beyond that, but it just gets a little hazy past about a year in terms of content.
Yeah.
But I think to that point, Mike, it's definitely a framework, because I think we have the flexibility to go what if we did that? And we have the space to be able to go explore that. So it's not super granular. It's here's a direction that we want to follow, and here's a framework that we might want to pursue. But there's still space for those, as you say, those sparks to be we could try this, or what about that? Which is, again, one of the best things about working on this game.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I remember when Craig first announced Sea of Thieves. I think we had Rare Replay and Sea of Thieves together, I think. And but before we played the first trailer, I think he used the phrase "limitless possibilities." I think, if I remember Craig saying that kind of on stage. But it seemed like quite a kind of
a catch-all kind of generic thing to say. We believe it, right?
Yeah, but that kind of is the case, though, right? It really, looking back now, how true that is, because you've got a plan for the next year and a half, 2 years or something in terms of what we could do, but it's not like we're going to reach that and then go, what do we do next? It's there's just so many things we can do. The challenge is actually filtering and deciding what to do in what order, because there's just so much we can do. It's just this incredible sandbox that we can just keep adding things to, new ways to play, it's just about prioritizing. That's probably the hardest thing, isn't it? It's choosing which things to do next.
Yeah, it's wonderful and terrifying. In terms of, we often say on the team, I think we've all said this in our own little ways, we'll never run out of ideas for Sea of Thieves, because to your point, there's always contributions from our own team. The fact that it is this fantastical pirate world, and it can almost be anything. But the terrifying part is the realization that, and this is almost like an old school way of thinking about it, as in, it'll never be finished. As in, there'll never be a point where it'll reach a point where it's done now, it's done. It's reached a pinnacle. I can't imagine that ever happening.
Well, does anyone want to ask any questions of the team? I think there's wherever the microphone is. I can't. There it is.
Oh, there we go.
Please do form a queue if you want to ask a question.
Singing superstar. No. Karaoke superstar there.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. My first question is a lore question. So, in the Pirate's Life Tall Tale, we meet the cursed captain. I'm wondering, is he the captain, Flameheart's captain, from the Heart of Fire lore, and the person who wrote the letter in Davy Jones's chest? Are they the same character?
Well, what a question. No.
Thank you. So my second question is from a friend of mine. He really wants a specific beard that you've shown in a trailer from E3 2018. It's a giant bushy beard that you gave the NPC Black Dog Briar.
Yes.
So can you please release this beard?
So I believe. Go.
So we often sneak and release cosmetics into our trailers and marketing assets. We have a list. You will see those items at some point with the wonderful partnership of one of our producers, Louise, who's sat shrinking in the front row just over there.
Yeah.
So
If you have questions about unreleased cosmetics, Louise.
But we're tracking them. We see everyone's comments. We're where do I get this? How do I get this? And we're relaying it back. So I would hope you get to see everything that you've seen in a trailer eventually in the game as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, we're not deliberately holding that stuff back. We're just, it falls through the cracks. And Louise reminds us constantly that we're sitting on all these awesome things that our players would really want. So thank you, Louise, when you finally see that.
And by the way, for those that don't know, the Splash Tails song, which is one of the best things that's been done, is this man here with that, like, so amazing work, sir. Like, your musical talents are incredible. So yeah, thank you for being an amazing member of the community, bud.
Hi.
Hello.
I was going to have a PvP question, but as an ex-arena player, but Season 8, definitely something to hype for, so thank you for that. I will then go to my second love, fishing. Now, I've got all the accommodations.
Yeah.
Sure, so there's plenty of us here, and you've introduced milestones, and I'm not going to talk about the whole, like, you not giving us milestones for stuff we were collected. Completely understand. But is there anything that we can have in the future to actually at least to say, well, we can go do some fishing for something else other than the milestones if we've already got everything and our Hunter's Call is already max rank?
Do you mean in terms of having a trinket, for example, that respects the time you've put into fishing?
No,
Do you mean that?
I mean in terms with, give me a reason to go for the milestones out of just not doing the milestones. If we've already got the accommodations.
Yeah.
Like, there's no voyage types or anything like that. Is there potentially any other kind of thing in regards with
that is a great question. I think, like, I love fishing in Sea of Thieves. I really do. I'm quite proud of the mechanic, and it's one of those things that you expect it to be in a pirate game with all of that water, right? I think Hunter's Call, what I will say is Hunter's Call as a trading company, I think has needed some love for some time in terms of new things to strive for with that. And I think we talk about it quite a lot when we're talking about plans for the future, like where Hunter's Call fits into that. And we always come back to, we don't want to just put small things in. It feels like it needs something more meaningful. So I wouldn't say plans are fully formed on that, but what I will say is we do recognise that fishing as a mechanic, how it fits into the Hunter's Call, it is going to need a tune-up and an expansion at some point in the future. And just know that we see it and the intent's there, but we're in the kind of the phase of planning that out and what that would be. But yeah, I agree with you, but it does need something. I
do love, by the way, that you encapsulate what I was saying earlier about the different play styles that we have in Sea of Thieves, because it's like a player that loves PvP and fishing. It's like, perfect, love it. I love that. It's like the two main goals, I love it. But I love it, that's what this game is, right? It's like, it's something different to everybody, and I just love that those are the two things you love. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Kill everyone and relax by fishing. I love it, yeah, it's great.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
As a PvE player, now the other side of the coin, my partner and I will really enjoy the adventures that you guys offer. There's always been a rumor of private servers, and I thought on top of that, is there an idea of an adventure tool where you can create your own adventures? Because my group of friends, I would love to maybe create adventures within your universe and kind of like customize it, make it an adventure that you can witness your friends resolving your own puzzles using your mechanics. I think it has a lot of potential. Has there been a conversation about that at all?
There's been many conversations about that. I think the area you're talking about it's a huge area. I think so many of us always love the idea of what if you could create experiences for others and almost be the pirate DM and lead a bunch of friends through a custom experience. And that just feels so Sea of Thieves. It feels like it allowed people to celebrate our lore. And to be honest, the community are kind of doing it, right? In terms of, but in a really hard way. They're kind of hitting all the friction, but they're kind of creating these experiences and then videoing it and then sharing it. A way in Sea of Thieves to have a tool set that would allow you to do that, it would be a huge investment, which is really where our conversations are at. But our mind is open to it, I would say.
In the custom server space kind of thing, yeah, like trying to give people as much control over a server so that they can create experiences. I think with that, there's going to be so many different motivations that people have, whether it's wanting to create a new PvP experience or creating tales for each other or role-playing, or like, I think we are working on custom servers in the background. It's been a big investment technically to kind of almost like gain control of the server and expose that. We're kind of in that place now, and now it's about opening up like more control.
Yeah.
And we're going to be starting we're currently going through like a codev transition basically on the custom server stuff. So just kind of getting a newer team in place, but. We're definitely kind of at that phase where we're going to start exposing more and testing more with kind of with early parts of small parts of the community to begin with, to get it into a state that we can open it up for longer. But it's definitely kind of a long-term play. I think that is. It's going to be a long-term investment to get it to the place that we feel it's right for the kind of the wider community, I guess, to use. But we definitely want to start testing it with kind of really engaged people and get people who have those different motivations, right? So that that we're taking feedback from all the different types of kind of creative players, right?
Yeah. And I think just to build on that a little bit, not take up too much time, but I think Sea of Thieves is at a place now where if you play the average session, you're seeing a small slice of the potential possibilities that you could come across in that sandbox. So to your point, one of the things when we think about the future of Sea of Thieves we're most excited about, it is that space. Because, and I'll for custom servers, I'll share the vision statement with you, which is give our players the keys to the ultimate pirate toy box, and basically handing over the world to our players to basically go, I've got the toy box, I can do what I want, and I can create my own stories, like Andy in Toy Story. I can create my own stories in this pirate world and then enjoy them with my friends. It's so huge an opportunity. It's going to take us some time to get there, like Joe said.
It's a big undertaking, but we're working on it. So
Thank you.
So exciting.
Is there any chance of there being more than 4 people, crews and that sort of stuff? Because let's say you're in the middle of playing a game, like you've just finished an FOTD or something, and then another friend comes on. You could just go to an outpost, switch ship to maybe a galleon, and you might have more space for another person.
That's a great question. That is something we've discussed on and off over several years, the idea to change ships in the world. In terms of how Xbox Live sessions are managed, there's a lot of complexity around that. So it's not impossible. We don't have plans to do it at the moment, but it is something longer. If we look to the future as a theoretical possibility, would we like to support that? I think we would, but can't really say for sure whether that will happen. But I agree with the reason why, right?
Yeah, it's surprisingly complex to do. Basically, we've investigated and looked at it. It's it's possible, but it's a big investment. Sadly, not as simple as it sounds. Right?
Thank you.
Cheers.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question for each of you. What is your favourite feature of the game which you're sort of most proud of and enjoy playing?
So, go on, you go first.
That's a hard one.
I got to go
Surprisingly
first.
difficult.
I've got one.
You go first.
Yeah, I can go with it. So for me, I jumped in and played it like the other day, and just firing yourself out of a cannon in Sea of Thieves, honestly, I just kind of did it, and I had this moment of kind of realization where I was like, I don't think anyone else would have done that. Would have gone, we're going to make a pirate game and we're going to put this mechanic in. And I remember in the prototyping stage, when I think it was you or maybe it was Andy or Shelley that kind of said, we're going to be doing this. And I was just like, are we? Is that the tone? Is that what we're going to do?
It was very divisive.
It was really divisive on team as well. It was people were like, how's it going to look? Are you going to have a fat character in there? How are you going to get in? Is it going to be bulging cannons and stuff? But as soon as you played it, it was just this was meant to be. We cannot not do this. And it was all about, okay, how do we do it? How do we make it work visually? But for me, that was just kind of, as rare as a studio and as the Sea of Thieves team, that mechanic is quintessential rare, because it's just fun. We can't not have it. It's just fun. It's silly. It's going to make you smile every time you do it. And there's loads of creativity that you can do with it, right? And the skill we see of people just kind of say stuff. For me, that's the one. I just remember it so fondly from those early days, because it was one of the first mechanics that was almost outside of just getting the ship sailing, right? It was kind of the things you'd expect. It was one of the first ones where it was oh, okay, I see where we're heading with this.
I've got a fun fact for you. I don't know if you'll find it fun, but I think it's fun. So we have a dashboard that shows how many things are shot out of cannons. There's under a little projectiles heading, and it's cannonballs, fireworks. And it's actually dogs before people.
Really?
Yeah. So people prefer to shoot their pets out of cannons, but
Brilliant.
people's very close to that as well.
My friend keeps stealing my pen.
Yeah, just woo!
It's slightly annoying.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
So,
I'm gonna cheat and answer twice. My favourite thing inside the game is fireworks. Like, I like to go sail on my own, shoot some nice fireworks, and it's a really nice way to make friends as well. It's like, I'm not hostile, I've just shot a sparkly chicken at you. But in terms of features, and this is sort of like where I'm cheating a bit, one of my favourite things is our SOT shot competition that we run on our channels, because the creativity of our community just like blows me away every single time. And it's not officially a feature, but it's like it's a feature of our kind of channels altogether. I just think it's amazing for a game where you've got like live servers and anything can happen. The way that these scenes are constructed and how people think about them is amazing. And I just like every 2 weeks I just look forward to it because I'm like, this is gonna be amazing. The last one was like colourful, and it was just like, how do you do that? And that's one of the favourite things about this game is like you can bend it to your will to make amazing scenes that it's just unlike no other game. I know I keep saying that, but it really is.
Well, I agree with both of those wholeheartedly. I think I'll give you the boring designer's answer, which is, I think one of the elements I, to this day, still massively respect about Sea of Thieves is the fact that you're completely immersed in the experience with limited UI on screen. Just that approach of everything's a physical item, there's not a million things competing for your attention, your focus is just on the ship, it's just on the horizon, it's just on the sea, and the way that players show their maps to each other, they use the ship's map on the table, it makes everything harder in what we do. The fact that you can't just pull up a map anywhere, you don't know where your ship is, everything's a physical item in terms of how you think and relate to it. But I think it's beyond the pirate theme, I think it's a big reason why Sea of Thieves has a unique identity, is that that's at the heart of the game, and it's the way we think about everything. And even in a small way, I think it's a big reason why it invites people to build physical props of things from the game and cosplay as characters in the game, because everything feels immersive, tangible and tactile. So I think it's a big part for why Sea of Thieves feels the way it does.
Yeah, thank you guys. That's awesome. But yeah, amazing game. Thank you for making it. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, thank you.
Great question.
Great question.
Right.
Would there ever be a ship which has more than 4 players on it, like a man of war?
That's an interesting question. I thought there's a gentleman who asked the question about changing the ship size. I thought that was where he was going to go. Yeah. I don't know if you guys want to jump in. I'll answer my way first, which is, I'd answer the question around adding new weapon types in a similar way, which is we need to get a grip with hit reg first and solidify the foundation before we think about expanding the experience with combat. And I think it's the same with ship types. I think, have we ever spoke about a man of war on team? Quite a lot. We've spoken about that quite a lot, and maybe even made some plans about it. I think at the rate at which we are adding content to the game, like Captaincy, like the feature, like Season 8, like we've got planned for the future, keeping on top of the performance of the game is absolutely critical. So there's a lot of incoming kind of performance improvements that makes it work better across different hardware and depending on where you are in the world and the different data centers. So we need to get to a good foundation with that before we think about increasing the amount of players that can play on a server. But would it be cool to have a man of war in Sea of Thieves? Hell yeah, it would. So I love the idea. Maybe.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
I wondered if you thought about having custom fireworks so that you could like create, design fireworks, different animals, different shapes, different letters, all that sort of thing, and also designing your own sails as well. It comes back to that sort of creative tool that you could use to design that. I just thought if that was something you had in mind at some point.
So I can cover a little bit. I think this would be amazing, and we are looking at ways that we are able to get kind of more player content into the game. But I think And this is a really boring answer. You have to think about like the moderation ask and the risks of doing something like that. Because if someone said like, you can draw any shape and send it up into the sky as a firework,
would they draw?
You can pretty much guess what the number one thing that's going to be drawn will be. Thank you for the demonstration. I appreciate that. So I think it's a wonderful idea. I think there would have to be a level of curation, and obviously with that it comes with a big kind of investment of resource ask. But I don't think we would ever say no. I think we just have to be really careful about how we did it.
Yeah. Love the idea of it. Love the idea of giving, kind of goes to the custom server question, giving people more control and customization in their experience. Love the idea. I mean, I will say we definitely designed fireworks with that in mind, in terms of how you can mix and match the basic firework types of different colours with the more elaborate kind of shape-based things. We kind of designed them in the way that, you know, you've got at least 2 cannons on the ship. You can kind of coordinate a fireworks display. So no plans to do player-created fireworks. We'd want to do that in the game through combining fireworks in different ways.
I think the dev term for what you're talking about is TTP, isn't it? Isn't that the...
Yes, yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you very much. It's been a great game that I've managed to introduce to some new people.
Wonderful.
Is there one more question? Is there any going to be any more expanse on the creator crew offer?
Question?
The short answer is the creator engagement team have very recently expanded. They are looking at all the programs that we've got. There's some really exciting things in the work. So without committing our good colleague and friend John to too much work, it's absolutely one of the spaces that we'll be revisiting. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
We only have about 5 minutes left, so if we can rattle through a couple, we might move. I think we're going to struggle to get through everybody.
Yeah.
Hi guys. I've been a huge fan of Sea of Thieves over the years. I've been watching how it was changing. I'm a fellow developer myself, and it's been like, maybe that's why I'm such a huge fan. And being able to play it with my friends, and we finish our work where we make games, and then we come back home and we play Sea of Thieves. We love it. And I'm surprised nobody asked this question before, but and I know that you get this asked a lot. So the question is, have you ever thought about separating PvP and PvE, where you can focus just on the story, sailing the seas? I know that it might be one of your pillars of the game, that you don't want to separate it, but we always have a big fight, which is like, I see that there is a ship coming around, and I want to fight them, and my friends, they're like, no, let's run away. And we can compromise at times, and
I'll let you answer specifically, because I know it's your favourite topic, but it's actually as kind of contentious a topic, I think, internally at the studio, in terms of different perspectives of what we could do, what we shouldn't do, what we should, as it is, I think, in the community as well, right? It's like everyone has a different perspective on this, and I think what Sea of Thieves is as a shared world is that's what makes it most special. But like I talked about earlier, it can also be a negative experience for some people, especially like you say, if you're kind of wanting to do a tall tale or you want to do adventures. So it's a topic we talk about a lot. I'll let you kind of give a perspective on it. But yeah, it is a constant conversation, and it's not something that we're dismiss out of hand, right? In terms of the topic, because we get it, we really do, and it's yeah. So we'll have different perspectives, I think, even myself and Mike, so, yeah.
I think what we believe is that beyond the core gameplay, beyond the theme and the world and the way it looks and how it plays, I think a big reason for why Sea of Thieves was able to establish itself, honestly, is because it was a shared world adventure game. I think that was the distinctive quality that allowed it to reach a community that, thankfully, so a lot of that community is still playing, and we've been able to grow it. So it's a big part of what Sea of Thieves is, and it's the game we always wanted to make. The swag, the shared world adventure game, every ship on the horizon being an unknown player doing the same thing as you. It's at the heart of what Sea of Thieves was designed to be. So I think with where Sea of Thieves is at and where it could go in the future, that doesn't mean that it's a closed book, but instinctually, from a creative perspective, I think the idea of just taking the Sea of Thieves experience and just turning something off and going, you can just have 50% of it, feels odd to me. I think it doesn't mean that there couldn't be an experience that ticks that box, but I think we'd need to fill that space with something else, rather than there's a lesser experience where half the game is not available to you. I think we'd need to celebrate it as part of a different experience. So that's my vague way of saying how we're thinking about it, but I think it needs to be more than just turning off PvP.
Okay. Fully understand. Thank you so much for making Sea of Thieves, and I'm really looking forward to see what's the next season we're going to bring and so on. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're actually out of time. If it's a quick question. Yeah. Go on.
Right, guys, love the game. Question. With the Pirates Life Disney experience, one thing my friends really enjoyed was toward the end game larger ship boss experience, frigates and men of war. With the last question about PvE, like different sealed experiences, do you think we'll ever see like larger raid boss style, like long-term combat adventures for multiple crews to go on and kind of fight together, like a, British Empire ship of the line or a gigantic sea monster or something like that?
Yeah. That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Well, there's. Well, if you
sincerely, yes, sounds great.
If you didn't have time to ask a question, I'm sure Mike, Joe, and Christina will be hanging around somewhere around the show floor. So do grab them, do say hello. But we've got to usher so many people out of the room. So a big hand, I think, to the. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And enjoy the rest of the show. Cheers.